True transformation begins when you stop comparing yourself to others and focus solely on your own growth. Because comparison is a silent thief. It steals your confidence, your clarity, and your ability to appreciate your own journey. Every time you look at someone else's progress, you unintentionally dismiss your own possibilities. You start believing you're behind when in truth, you're simply on a different timeline. You start undervaluing your strengths, forgetting that what makes you powerful is not how you measure up to someone else, but how committed you are to becoming the best version of yourself. When you let go of comparison, you finally free yourself from the pressure to perform for an audience that was never meant to define your worth. You begin to realize that success isn't a race with others, it's a race with your former self. It's about making progress that aligns with your own purpose and potential, not progress that mirrors someone else's highlight reel. Growth becomes more meaningful because it comes from intention, not insecurity. Focusing on your growth allows you to move with clarity instead of confusion. You stop chasing paths that don't belong to you just because they worked for someone else. Instead, you tune into your own gifts, your own calling, your own strengths. This alignment brings a sense of fulfillment that comparison could never offer. It allows you to pour your energy into what genuinely matters, not what temporarily impresses. When comparison fades, gratitude takes its place. And gratitude opens your eyes to the progress you've already made, progress you overlooked because you were too busy observing everyone else. You start to recognize how far you've come, even if you haven't reached where you want to be. This awareness fuels your motivation in a healthier way, turning your journey into something you celebrate instead of criticize. As you focus solely on your growth, you create space for consistency. You're no longer distracted by how quickly someone else is moving or how loudly someone else is celebrated. You're anchored in your own process. This grounded mindset is what allows real transformation to happen because consistency thrives where comparison dies. You also become more patient with yourself. You understand that growth doesn't happen overnight and neither does reinvention. You give yourself permission to learn, to adjust, to evolve at a pace that feels right for your life. This patience removes the pressure to be perfect and replaces it with a commitment to improve step by step, day by day. When you eliminate comparison, you also silence the internal voice that constantly tells you that you're not enough. You begin to see your potential clearly, without distortion, without doubt, without the noise of someone else's achievements overshadowing your own. This clarity builds a stronger sense of self-belief, making it easier to pursue goals that once felt out of reach. Focusing on your own growth empowers you to create habits that match your aspirations. You invest your time in skill building, your energy in personal development, and your focus in becoming someone you're proud of. You stop living reactively and start living deliberately, structuring your days around actions that move you closer to your vision. As you continue on your path without comparing it to someone else's, you begin to notice how much more peaceful the journey feels. You're driven, but not rushed, motivated, but not anxious, ambitious, but not insecure. You operate from a place of purpose rather than pressure, and this shift in mindset creates an environment where transformation becomes natural rather than forced, and gradually, without chasing anyone, without trying to outdo anyone, you look back and realize how much you've grown. You see that the moment you stopped comparing yourself to others was the moment you started becoming who you were always meant to be. Ownership of your results is the turning point where your life, habits, and mindset begin to shift. It's the moment you stop blaming circumstances, stop pointing at people, and stop waiting for something outside of you to change. When you accept full responsibility for where you are, you reclaim the power to change where you're going. That shift in perspective is the catalyst for growth, because it moves you from being a passive observer of your life to the active architect of it. When you take ownership, excuses lose their appeal. You start recognizing how much energy you've wasted justifying your lack of progress instead of creating progress. You begin to see excuses for what they truly are, barriers you built yourself. And because you built them, you also have the ability to tear them down. This awareness creates a new level of honesty within you, one that demands effort, accountability, and consistency. Accepting responsibility forces you to look at your habits with a clearer lens. You can't keep pretending that small decisions don't have big consequences. You realize that your daily choices are either moving you closer to your potential or keeping you chained to your patterns. This understanding pushes you to upgrade the routines that have kept you stagnant, replacing them with habits that align with who you want to become. Ownership shifts your mindset from reacting to life to directing it. Instead of waiting for motivation to strike, you commit to action even when it's uncomfortable. You stop treating discipline as optional and start embracing it as the foundation of every transformation. You begin viewing challenges differently, not as setbacks that justify quitting, but as opportunities to prove your commitment to yourself. Taking responsibility also strengthens your self-awareness. You start identifying the behaviors, beliefs, and distractions that have been holding you back. You confront the parts of yourself you used to ignore, your procrastination, your inconsistency, your fear of failure. This self-awareness isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary because transformation can't happen in the dark. It requires honest evaluation and intentional change. As ownership becomes part of your mindset, you naturally raise your standards. You stop tolerating the habits that sabotage your progress. You stop allowing emotion to dictate your decisions. You stop settling for the bare minimum from yourself. Instead, you build a new level of personal excellence, one that demands alignment between your goals and your daily actions. Ownership also builds resilience. When things go wrong, you don't collapse into victimhood. You analyze, adjust, and advance. You understand that setbacks don't define you, your response does. This resilience becomes one of your greatest strengths because it keeps you moving forward even when the path isn't easy. It teaches you that growth is not about perfection, but about persistence. Once you fully embrace responsibility, your perspective on success changes. You no longer see it as something mysterious or reserved for a select few. You see it as the predictable result of consistent effort over time. This clarity eliminates envy because you recognize that anyone who is winning has simply been willing to take ownership longer and more consistently than others. Over time, taking responsibility becomes empowering instead of intimidating. You recognize that every result in your life, good or bad, is feedback, not failure. It shows you exactly what needs to change, what needs to strengthen, and what needs to evolve. Instead of running from that feedback, you use it as fuel to grow into the version of yourself who is capable of producing better outcomes. And eventually, without seeking validation or applause, you realize how much you've grown simply because you chose to take ownership. You see the shift in your thinking, the strength in your habits, and the clarity in your direction. You recognize that the moment you accepted full responsibility for your results was also the moment you stepped into your power. Everything you need to elevate already exists within you. Discipline and consistency simply unlock it. The potential you carry isn't missing, broken, or incomplete. It's dormant, waiting for you to activate it through the choices you make every day. Too many people believe they need something external, a better opportunity, a perfect moment, someone's approval to rise. But the truth is, elevation begins inside you long before it shows up around you. Your gifts, your ideas, your strength, your resilience, they're already there, waiting for you to take them seriously. When you understand that everything you need is already within you, you stop searching for shortcuts and start focusing on what you can control. Discipline becomes the tool you use to shape your future instead of hoping it magically appears. You stop wishing for growth and start working for it. You recognize that talent may spark possibility, but discipline is what sustains I. It's what turns potential into mastery and dreams into results. Consistency becomes the engine that keeps your progress moving. Anyone can be motivated for a moment, but it's the person who shows up day after day, especially when it's inconvenient, who truly elevates. Consistency doesn't require perfection, it requires commitment. It demands that you keep going even when enthusiasm fades. And every time you choose consistency over comfort, you strengthen the foundation of the future you're building. As you practice discipline, you begin to discover strengths you didn't even know you had. You learn that you can handle more than you thought, that you can endure what once intimidated you, and that you can rise above the limitations you once accepted. Elevation happens quietly at first, through small victories, subtle improvements, and habits that once felt impossible. But with time, these small steps compound into undeniable transformation. The more consistent you become, the more your mindset shifts. You start trusting yourself again. You believe your own promises because you keep them. You stop viewing your goals as distant visions and start seeing them as achievable outcomes. This internal shift is what creates momentum because belief fuels effort, and effort produces results. Slowly, you realize that you are not waiting for growth, you are creating it. Discipline also teaches you accountability. It forces you to look at your life and recognize that the level you rise to will be determined by the level you're willing to commit to. You stop blaming circumstances and start shaping them. You stop avoiding responsibility and start embracing it as the power that moves your life forward. This accountability doesn't weigh you down, it frees you because it gives you control over your progress. As discipline and consistency begin to unlock what's inside you, your goals, become clearer. You start separating what truly matters from what only distracts you. You prioritize purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort, progress over procrastination. And as you refine your focus, your vision sharpens, and the path ahead becomes easier to walk because it's aligned with who you're becoming. You begin noticing that elevation is not a sudden event. It's a gradual unveiling of the strength, wisdom, and potential you've always possessed. With each disciplined choice and each consistent action, another layer of possibility reveals itself. You stop underestimating what you're capable of because your own progress proves your power to you again and again. People around you might think you've changed, but the truth is you're not becoming someone new. You're finally becoming who you were meant to be. Your potential was never absent. It was simply locked behind habits that didn't match your vision. And now that you've learned to unlock it, you operate from a level of confidence and clarity that can't be shaken. And with every step you take, you're reminded that the elevation you seek was never outside of you. It was within you, waiting for discipline to awaken it and consistency to strengthen it. Focusing on yourself raises your standards, strengthens your habits, and naturally attracts better opportunities. Because when you shift your attention inward, you stop tolerating the things that once kept you stuck. You stop settling for behavior that doesn't reflect your goals, and you start expecting more from yourself than ever before. This internal elevation becomes the foundation for every external change that follows. The moment you prioritize your own growth, your entire life begins to rise to meet the new level you set. As your focus deepens, you start to notice patterns that once felt normal but were actually holding you back. You recognize the shortcuts you used to take, the promises you used to break, and the comfort zones you used to hide in. But instead of judging yourself, you begin rebuilding yourself from the inside out. You raise your standards not because someone told you to, but because you finally understand that your future depends on it. This shift creates a new level of intentionality that flows into everything you do. With higher standards comes stronger habits. You stop waiting to feel motivated and start acting from commitment. You build routines that support your growth instead of sabotage it. You become consistent where you used to be inconsistent, disciplined where you used to be distracted, focused where you used to be scattered. These habits quietly transform your identity, molding you into someone who expects progress from themselves every single day. And the more you show up for yourself, the more powerful those habits become. When you prioritize self-focus, you also begin to protect your energy. You recognize the value of your time and refuse to waste it on people or situations that drain you. You become selective about what you allow into your life, what you engage with, and what you give your attention to. This selective focus isn't selfish, it's strategic. It keeps you aligned with your mission and shields you from distractions that once pulled you off course. As your standards rise and your habits strengthen, your environment starts to shift in response. You find yourself connecting with people who inspire you instead of discourage you. You attract relationships that align with your growth rather than your past. You begin encountering opportunities that match the level of dedication you've been operating at. The world has a way of rewarding those who take responsibility for their own evolution, and that reward often shows up as unexpected doors opening. The more you focus on yours, the more clarity you gain about what you actually want. You stop chasing paths that don't fit you and start pursuing the ones that resonate with your purpose. This clarity makes decision-making easier and prevents you from scattering your energy across meaningless pursuits. You become grounded, intentional, and aligned with your direction, which naturally leads you to spaces where opportunity feels abundant instead of distant. Your confidence also begins to grow as you honor your personal standards. You trust yourself more because you're finally keeping the commitments you make. You take pride in the discipline you've developed, in the progress you've earned, and in the person you're becoming. This confidence isn't loud, it's steady. It shows up in your posture, your choices, your mindset. It becomes a magnet for opportunities that are attracted to people who believe in themselves. As you continue to elevate internally, you'll notice that certain opportunities no longer feel like luck. They feel like alignment. They match the work you've been doing and the level you've been operating at. This is the reward for focusing on yourself. Your preparation meets the right moment, and what once seemed impossible suddenly feels reachable. You step into rooms you once felt unqualified for because now your habits, standards, and mindset qualify you. This inward focus also helps you outgrow environments that no longer serve you. You start recognizing when you've stayed somewhere too long, when you've outgrown conversations, when your vision no longer fits the space you're in. Instead of shrinking to fit, you rise to match your potential. And every time you rise, new opportunities rise with you. And gradually, without forcing connection, without chasing validation, without begging for recognition, you realize that better opportunities are showing up simply because you decide to grow. You see that the world responds differently when you hold yourself to a higher standard, when your habits reflect your goals, and when your focus remains on the person you are becoming. Everything you need to elevate already exists within you. Discipline and consistency simply unlock it. You are not waiting on the universe to drop something into your lap. You are waiting on yourself to activate what has been dormant for far too long. Most people underestimate the strength, creativity, and potential that already lives inside them because they have never practiced the habits required to bring those qualities to the surface. Elevation is not about adding something new. It's about awakening what has always been there. Inside you is a reservoir of untapped ability, but access to it is blocked when your choices remain inconsistent. Without discipline, your gifts stay hidden, your ideas stay untested, and your dreams remain theoretical. Consistency acts like a key, turning slowly but steadily, unlocking layers of potential you didn't even realize were waiting. The more consistent you become, the more of yourself you discover. Discipline is the decision to value your future more than your comfort. It is the daily commitment to move, even when you don't feel like moving. It's not about perfection. It's about prioritizing what matters long enough for your abilities to grow strong enough to support your goals. Without discipline, potential stays soft. With discipline, potential becomes power. As you practice discipline, you start building trust with yourself. You prove that you can rely on your own decisions, your own effort, your own commitments. That self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence, because real confidence doesn't come from compliments or accomplishments. It comes from keeping your word to yourself. Once you trust yourself, you stop doubting what you. Be capable of consistency deepens that trust. It is the repeated effort, the small actions done daily, the quiet progress that compounds over time. Most breakthroughs are the result of consistency, not intensity. It's not the big moments that elevate you. It's the daily choices you make when no one is watching. Those choices shape your mindset, your habits, and your future. Everything within you grows stronger with repetition. The more consistent you are, the clearer your path becomes. You start noticing improvement, not because you changed who you are, but because you activated who you've always been. Every day of consistent effort sharpens your skills and strengthens your identity, turning potential into performance. Once you commit to discipline, excuses lose their power. You stop negotiating with laziness, fear, or procrastination because you understand that every delay costs you something. You begin to guard your time more carefully, knowing that your growth depends on how intentionally you use it. Discipline becomes less of a chore and more of a lifestyle. As a result of that lifestyle, your energy shifts. You feel more capable, more focused, more aligned with your purpose. You start to notice opportunities you couldn't see before simply because your mindset is no longer clouded by inconsistency. Elevation requires clarity, and clarity often comes from the habits you practice every day. With discipline and consistency, momentum begins to build. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, and what once felt impossible becomes achievable. You rise not because of luck, but because of commitment. You elevate not because someone opened a door for you, but because you prepared yourself to walk through doors you once felt unqualified for. And slowly you begin to realize that nothing was missing from you. You were not lacking ability or potential. You simply needed the structure of discipline and the repetition of consistency to bring out what had been inside you all along. 2, focusing on yourself raises your standards, strengthens your habits, and naturally attracts better opportunities. Focusing on yourself raises your standards, strengthens your habits, and naturally attracts better opportunities. When you shift your attention inward instead of outward, you become aware of the areas in your life that truly need improvement. You start recognizing where you've been settling, where you've been tolerating less than you deserve, and where you've allowed distractions to lower your potential. This awareness pushes you to raise the bar for what you accept from yourself and from your environment. As your standards rise, your decisions begin to change. You no longer entertain anything that drains your energy or delays your progress. You stop giving time to people who don't value growth, and you stop investing in habits that lead you nowhere. Higher standards force you to protect your time, your focus, and your future with a level of seriousness you didn't have before. Raising your standards naturally strengthens your habits. When you expect more from yourself, you begin acting like the person you're becoming, not the person you used to be. You build routines that support your goals instead of sabotaging them. You create consistency where there used to be excuses. Your daily actions start reflecting your new expectations, and over time, those actions reshape your entire lifestyle. Focusing on yourself also eliminates the need for external approval. You stop seeking validation and start prioritizing alignment. You choose what is good for your growth, even if it isn't popular or easy. This self-focus gives you clarity, and clarity helps you make decisions that build momentum instead of confusion. When you know what you want and who you're becoming, everything else becomes easier to navigate. As your habits improve, your identity evolves. You start seeing yourself as someone capable, disciplined, and focused. That internal shift influences how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you show up every day. And when your identity rises, your environment eventually rises with it. The world responds to who you are, not who you pretend to be. Better habits create better outcomes, and better outcomes attract better opportunities. You don't have to chase them. They come to you because you've become the type of person who can sustain them. When your standards are high, your energy elevates, your consistency strengthens, and people begin to notice the difference in your presence. Opportunities recognize discipline. Success recognizes readiness. You also develop a stronger sense of self-worth. When you invest in yourself, you understand your value on a deeper level. You no longer accept connections, jobs, or environments that contradict your growth. That self-worth becomes a filter that removes anything misaligned with your potential. The more you focus on yourself, the easier it becomes to identify what belongs in your life and what doesn't. Focusing inward also builds resilience. Instead of being thrown off by setbacks or distracted by noise, you stay grounded in your vision. Your focus protects you from emotional impulsiveness and helps you stay committed even when circumstances challenge you. This resilience becomes one of your greatest strengths because it keeps you steady while others are easily shaken. As you continue to grow internally, the opportunities that once felt out of reach start feeling natural. This is because you've become the kind of person who attracts growth, excellence, and advancement. Your habits, your standards, and your energy send a signal that you are ready for more, and life responds to that signal with doors that match your maturity. And over time, you realize that focusing on yourself was never selfish. It was strategic. It positioned you for the opportunities that only appear when your standards rise, your habits strengthen, and your internal world becomes strong enough to support the success you're preparing for. Your external world cannot change until you make internal changes. Identity upgrades always precede life upgrades. Every result in your life is a reflection of who you believe you are. You cannot outperform your identity, and you cannot maintain a level of success that your mindset is not prepared to support. Transformation begins on the inside long before it ever shows up in your results. Most people try to change their circumstances without changing themselves. They want new opportunities, but keep old habits. They want better outcomes, but carry the same doubts, fears, and limitations. They want elevation without evolution, but life doesn't work that way. Your identity shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your destiny. When you upgrade your identity, you begin seeing yourself differently. You stop identifying with your past failures and start identifying with your future potential. This shift in self-perception influences everything: your confidence, your discipline, your consistency, your expectations. When you see yourself as someone capable of change, you naturally begin to act in ways that support that belief. Internal changes require honesty. You have to confront the beliefs that limit you, the patterns that weaken you, and the stories you've accepted about yourself that no longer serve your future. This level of self-awareness is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. You cannot fix what you're unwilling to acknowledge. And the moment you acknowledge, you begin regaining control. Identity upgrades also ape your habits. Once you see yourself differently, you start behaving differently. You choose discipline over convenience, growth over comfort, purpose over distraction. Your actions begin to align with your vision instead of your insecurities. And when your habits shift, your entire lifestyle begins to follow. Internal change strengthens your confidence. You feel more grounded, more prepared, more focused. Confidence doesn't come from external achievements. It comes from knowing you've done the internal work to sustain them. When you build yourself from the inside, you no longer depend on external validation to feel worthy or capable. As your identity grows, your standards rise. You stop accepting mediocre effort from yourself. You stop entertaining environments that shrink you. You stop tolerating relationships that drain you. Internal strength creates external boundaries, and those boundaries protect your growth. What once appealed to you no longer satisfies you because your identity no longer matches that level. Eventually, your internal shift begins to reflect in your external world. New opportunities appear because you are finally aligned with them. New people enter your life because your energy and habits attract them. New results emerge because your mind, actions, and identity now support a higher level of living. Everything changes from the inside out. Life upgrades become inevitable once your identity upgrades. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. You stop waiting for circumstances to change and start becoming the kind of person who changes circumstances. The path opens because you rise to the level required to walk it. And eventually you understand that your external world was never the problem. It was simply mirroring the version of you that you were operating from. Once you changed that version, everything around you began shifting in respo. The moment you fully commit to becoming who your future requires, acceleration begins and your potential activates. Commitment is the switch that turns possibility into momentum, the catalyst that awakens a level of effort you didn't even know you were capable of. Most people flirt with their goals, but few commit. And that lack of commitment is why they remain stuck in cycles of frustration, repeating old habits and wondering why change never arrives. When you finally make the decision to stop negotiating with your excuses and stop entertaining your limitations, something within you shifts. You feel the weight of indecision lift, replaced by a clarity that pushes you forward. Commitment forces you to see your life through a new lens. You stop asking whether you feel like doing what needs to be done and start asking whether your future deserves your effort. You stop settling for temporary comfort and start prioritizing long-term growth. This shift is powerful because it changes not just your actions, but the standards behind your actions. You begin to operate from a future-focused mindset rather than a comfort-driven one, aligning every choice with the person you are becoming instead of the person you have been. When you commit fully, you create a level of internal pressure that pulls you toward your potential. It's not the pressure of stress or anxiety, it's the pressure of purpose. You recognize that the future version of you is counting on your discipline today, and that awareness makes procrastination feel too expensive. Your decisions start reflecting your destiny instead of your distractions, and you begin to close the gap between your current identity and your future identity. This kind of commitment also eliminates the back and forth battle in your mind. Instead of constantly debating whether you should take action, you simply act. You remove the option of quitting. You remove the habit of delaying. You remove the patterns that once held you in place. This mental simplicity creates extraordinary momentum because you stop wasting energy on indecision. All your focus goes into execution, and execution is what creates acceleration. As your commitment deepens, your habits begin to evolve. You start waking up with intention instead of drifting through your day. You push yourself to grow in areas you previously avoided. You show up even when you don't feel motivated because your commitment becomes stronger than your emotions. These habits compound over time, building a foundation of consistency that supports your goals instead of sabotaging them. Commitment also sharpens your focus. Distractions that once stole your time and energy no longer hold the same power over you. You become more protective of your environment, more selective with your associations, and more aware of what drains versus what strengthens you. This clarity allows you to channel your energy into the actions that move your life forward, accelerating your progress beyond what you believe possible. Over time, commitment begins to reshape your self-image. You stop viewing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. This internal upgrade is one of the most transformative parts of the journey because it rewires your belief system. You begin to trust yourself at a deeper level, knowing that when you say you'll do something, you will. This self-trust becomes the fuel that drives you through challenges, setbacks, and moments of self-doubt. As your identity shifts, so does your capacity. You start accomplishing tasks that once felt overwhelming. You start setting goals that once felt out of reach. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible to you when you were operating from hesitation instead of commitment. This expansion isn't accidental. It's the result of stepping into the version of yourself that is equipped to handle more, do more, and become more. Eventually, the acceleration becomes undeniable. You notice that ideas come to you more easily. Solutions appear faster, and doors begin to open because your energy, discipline, and actions are aligned with your future instead of your comfort zone. You're no longer held back by the identity that kept you small. Instead, you're pulled forward by the identity that pushes you to rise. And through this entire process, you begin to understand a profound truth. The moment you commit fully is the moment your potential stops sleeping and starts moving, because commitment is the gateway to the future waiting for you.